guys, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Trainer on the TV. And today I'm delighted to welcome Chris Chapman to the show. Chris has got a great background in a variety of different sports, and he's recently taken over at huge rugby league club, Bradford Bulls. So Chris, welcome to the show, buddy.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Fantastic, bud. So for the listeners, mate, you just want to give a bit of a background of yourself, sort of how you got into the game. Obviously, you've got a PT business as well. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course, mate. Well, this is going to make me feel really old now, but so left school, went to college, always been involved in fitness at quite serious levels, I suppose, as well. So I played football at a decent level. My main sport were athletics, so 400 metre, 800 metre running. I actually once claimed to fame, got an England vest, and I also were on the same talent squad as Jess Ennis. So that's another claim to fame for you. But the kind of individualisation didn't really fit with me, and in me kind of pre-season, I suppose, in athletics in the winter, I played rugby, and that's how I kind of got introduced to rugby, which was rugby union at first. So I went to college, did the BTECs, did the sports science stuff, and then kind of got loads of opportunities in coaching formats, so going into schools and coaching children, going into older adults' homes, etc. I also were a fireman for about 5 years as well, so I did a lot of fitness kind of involved and around the job as well. So that was a brilliant job. I think I were a bit young, and I kind of spread myself too thin because I were a fireman, but then also I were gym manager as well. So I think it got a little bit too much with a newborn baby and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of came to an end with the fire service, so I kind of left there. All happened at once,
didn't it, by the sound of it?
All happened, mate. Honestly, it was madness. It was madness, and I'm one of them where I kind of just roll with it, and I think I just say yeah, and just like I'm quite ambitious, so I like to kind of get that experience under the belt as well. So yeah, so got all that kind of stuff. Did all qualifications, your PTs, your gym instructors, and all that kind of malarkey, and then had the obviously burning desire to run my own business, which I did with a mate of mine who I played rugby with, and we ran that successfully for about 5 years, to be brutally honest. And the business was delivering exercise in care homes. So we went around the north of England, to be brutally honest, and did exercise in care homes. So we did that again. Around that, our strength and conditioning at rugby league teams, to be fair, because that's what my background is. That's what I played for 15 years. So I know the game inside out, and I know the movement patterns, so on and so forth. So that was kind of my thing. So I were at Dewsbury, I were at Sheffield Eagles, and obviously running my business. So again, love doing the business. Unfortunately, we tried to franchise it out, not the right decision, and unfortunately, we had to kind of liquidate it, which caused a bit of heartache for a few staff members and stuff like that. So that was a tough period. So quite a tough period to kind of get over, because something that you love and you've got a desire for. So then I had to go to drawing board, mate. I had to get on whiteboard and do a bit of brainstorming and say, right, let's recreate yourself. And I jumped back into PTing, and PTing was something that I started with at college, to be brutally honest. I got qualification quite cheap, and I've always PT'd, so that was kind of my fallback plan, and started that in November. And then I was lucky enough to get an interview at Bradford, and they kind of offered me a job straight away, to be brutally honest, and said, look, really impressed with what you've done. You've got vast amount of experience, and did a little bit of a PowerPoint, which I'm a bit of a sucker for.
So, not a bad thing, that education.
Yeah, hey, that's it, mate. That's it. Like a few pictures and stuff like that. So I put that together, and the rest is history, I suppose. And I love the combination that I've got at minute with the PT and Bradford Bulls as well. So that's kind of where I'm at minute. I've kind of come to an epiphany of I want to be a strength and conditioning coach for the rest of my life, and that's my thing. So now I think I'm settled, mate. So next time somebody asks me that question, I think it'll be I've been a strength and conditioning coach for 10 years or something like that. So instead of
it's really interesting.
Different thing.
Yeah, that's quite a backstory, is that? It's
massive, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good in terms of obviously the different life experiences. Obviously, you've had some great highs. You've been on the front line with the fire service. You've been in business, run it really successfully, and then obviously you've hit the plateau where things didn't go so well. But the most important thing, Chris, with this is obviously you've not let that you've not let that kick you in the teeth, so to speak. It's been a case of, right, you've got your vision, you've got your goal, and you're going to chase, and you're going to chase it, and you're going to keep pushing. And I think that's ultimately what's got you where you are today, which is brilliant. So in terms of in case you guys haven't realised, Chris is a Yorkshireman, by the way, and you know, God's county, and no, and it is testament to what you're doing. I mean, obviously, one of the big questions that I had from a lad called Ian was in terms of working part time as a PT, and then of course working for a professional club like Bulls. How do you get to manage that?
So it's an awesome question, to be honest, and I think it's something that you don't actually think about until you're doing it. It's not something that you think about first off and say, well, how do I kind of spin these plates? Because again, obviously with Bulls, I've got 25 players. We've then got a younger age group as well, so we've got a scholarship program that sometimes you might have to interact with them and help them out as well. So that's another 25 to 30 players added on that. And then on the other side, you might get called up to first team and help them out as well. So again, that's another 30 players. So you're looking at 90 players. And then obviously you've got your PT business around it. So I think the thing that I've kind of, and it's this situation, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, that's made me kind of think of this. And I think the best way of kind of doing it is kind of integrating both together. So looking at your avatar, as it were, so your client in the PT business, what is your perfect client? Who are you going to benefit the most? And I think sometimes we get into and again, rightly so, you get into kind of a rut where I'll just take anybody because I need the money. I've got mortgages to pay, I've got bills to pay. Instead of kind of actually looking at who are you going to benefit most. And that's something I've done. And again, November, I'd take anybody, as it were. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously I was starting again. But now it then makes it easy in terms of planning. It makes it easier in terms of looking at sessions and exercise selection. So that's one thing I've done. So I've run the strength and conditioning with the PT quite close together. So there's not much difference in what I deliver. Another thing I've done as well is in terms of the planning, I've kind of phased approached everything. So again, I think there's a danger in PTing especially where you just kind of, I suppose the terminology is wing it. You kind of just deliver a session. Do you know what I mean? It's an all right session.
Do that, mate. Too many
people. Mate, honestly. Yeah, definitely. And again, I've done it in past. When I first started, you kind of just put a session together. Yeah, let's be brutally honest. But I think if you go through a phased approach and you actually take the person as an athlete and you say, right, well, we've got to do a bit of testing. We've got to look at how your movement patterns are. We've got to look at your gait. We've got to look at certain things. Not only that, if you're saying that to somebody, I mean, how good is that for a person who's giving you money to go, bloody hell, they've done all this for me and they've looked at my gait, they're actually doing assessments. It makes you stand out against the crowd. And I think that's a good value point as well, to actually take them through a process and explain your process and methods and how you're going to help them achieve their goal as well. So they're all things that I've kind of introduced into my business, and which has helped me out in terms of time, workloads, and obviously family time as well, which have also then got a balance around everything else. So I think it's bring them closer together. That's the main point from there.
That's a perfect one, and the ultimate thing I think that we touched on there to a degree is obviously they are humans at the end of the day. Yes, they're elite athletes, and yes, there might be a bit of a difference in terms of their workload and commitments and everything. But ultimately, we have got to treat everybody as an individual. And they're gonna have we look at a lot of the former pros at the moment when it comes to like the mental health element. You look at these elite athletes and it's like, right, well, they're earning, obviously it's a bit different in rugby than it is in football, but they're earning X amount. They're earning like 500 quid a week, 600 quid a week, and the average person's earning like 200 quid a week. And they're thinking, well, they get paid all this money. There's no way they're gonna, they've got no reason to have anything to moan about. But in the reality, if anything, they've got more stress on the joints. They've got more pressure because the partners will be whinging because they're never home because they've got these. They've got community events to do. They've got the training to do. They've got their own self targets, and they're under a lot of pressure, which a lot of people don't. Which is obviously what you're doing. But
absolutely valid. Yeah, I mean that's a great point. That, and I think people, athletics is a prime example. I mean, people watch people like athletes on telly and they think, oh God, they just train all day and stuff like that. But a massive point there, mate. I mean, some athletes, they don't even get paid to be an athlete. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're looking at people like Jess Ennis and Katarina Johnson and all them kind of athletes who are on this telly. But there's athletes out there that have sacrificed job opportunities, they're sacrificing family time to train. And these people have been training for not just a short period of time. This has been in their plan all along. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If it's an Olympics, it's been in planning for 5-6 years, and that's what S&C coaches do. It's not about the here and now. It's about, well, taking the athlete on a process and a desired outcome of achieving a bronze medal, if that's what it is in the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games. And I don't think people see that background stuff and how much work goes into it and how much rehabilitation have to do. Not allowed to drink, they're not allowed to eat chocolate. We've all just had Easter and we've all probably had a bit of chocolate. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think people see that. And that's one of the things in athletics where it got a little bit too serious for me. And I'm being brutally honest with myself.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy that forefront of it. Do you know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons why I kind of transitioned over to rugby, really.
Yeah. What's interesting with that as well is a lot of, talk about what people don't realise is it is the diets these people go on. I mean, if you look at an average bodybuilder, for example, obviously rugby league, you've got, dependent on your position, obviously you've got to put some size on. They're going to be going through. They're not going to be having carbs every day. They're not going to be. They're going to probably have more proteins and everything. But because of the lifestyle they're leading, they are going to be grumpy on certain times because not through choice, but because of the sacrifices that they're going to be making. And I've been in the presence of bodybuilders previously where they're on off season, and they could eat a whole chicken, but that's all they can eat for about 6 hours, 7 hours. And it's just like, why would you choose that lifestyle? But again, in terms of the support element, it's great that you mentioned it in terms of the long-term plan, because I've spoken to athletes in the past that have said that they've come out of playing at a high level in the professional game, and there's not really any support network. And from a personal background, from the army, when we're putting our life on the line, aren't we? Reputation on the line, whether you're a footballer, ex-force or whatever. Where is the route? Because there are a lot of people that are, they don't know what to do after, because their whole life is sport. And, you'll get people like Kevin Sinfield, Jamie Peacock, who are really fortunate that they've built such a good rapport and they've built such a good foundation. But these guys are mentally tough and they know exactly what they want. So you've got like Kevin's gone into director of rugby at Rhinos. And I think you've got the likes of Maguire's done something similar at Hull KR.
Hull KR, yeah.
And it is having that vision and having that bit of planning for the long term as well. But I mean, in terms of your players at Bullseye, Chris, what is it that you look for specifically to get out your players being part-time?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a tough one, really. But I mean, in any club you go to, obviously the first thing to do is to sit down with a coach and ask what they want and actually the program. So I predominantly work with the academy lads. So what is the program and what's it designed to do? So again, for any strength and conditioning coaches out there or people just starting in this year, that's the first question to ask. What do you want from these players? Because my perception of what I want can be completely different to a coach. And if you have that immediately and you haven't kind of drilled that question down to a mutual consent, then you kind of way off on both parts, really. So my ultimate first objective is I've coached as well. So as a coach kind of aspect, you want your players for full season. And especially with lads that I work with, I don't want them to get a severe injury that's going to cause them not to get to their potential. So my ultimate objective first off is injury prevention, doing everything right. So just for a little example, we do a primal movement in the off season.
Yeah.
Now what that means is basically jumping around like a kid, crawling like a kid, jumping on settees, just little things like that.
Yeah.
Because we lose that as we get older. We don't actually move correctly. We can't crawl and we can't do a bear crawl, or we can't roll over and we can't do things like that. So it's actually getting the athletes to get in tune with the body. And it's a little bit of fun, but it's then preventing injuries because it's getting the body to move in different ways and different formats. So that's the ultimate objective. And then from there, I mean, because I was an athlete and I ran 400 meters. Sprinting were quite predominant in me, and then again, I've always gone with the process of speed kills in any sport. If you can do an action faster than the opponents, ultimately you're on the better part of winning, really. So that's the same with everything I do. Now, obviously, I do follow a process in terms of how we do the weights, how we do the strength and conditioning program. But again, coming towards the season, it's making the athletes strong and fast, but also educating them as well, because these are young athletes. I mean, some are 16 years old, some are 17, 18. So it's actually introducing them to a few lifting patterns and a few kind of cleans correctly performed, because that's what they're going to be doing if they're professional and when they're more or less semi-professional now, but if they get to a Leeds Rhinos or a Super League team, really. So again, the ultimate number one point is injury prevention, and then secondary to that is strength, power, and then lastly, my third point would be speed and kind of SAQ, really. So speed, agility, and quickness to get them prime and ready for season, really. But again, it's list as long as your arm, mate. To be brutally honest, I think you've got to process it in a way that you as an individual understands it. So I've got my little boxes that I understand, where some people look and go, "What's he done there?"
It is great, because a lot of people don't realise that these fundamental movements are, they are pivotal. The jumping around. It's going to obviously strengthen. It's going to strengthen the bones. Going to strengthen the ligaments, and you are going to be doing those animal movements. And there's a company called, I think it's Zoo Athletic, ZUU. I think it's Zoo Athletic. I think.
Yes.
And the amount of you go on their site and you see their videos. I think it's about 2 or 3 years ago I come into contact with them. And they get some great results. And a lot of this is basically because of the way they're moving biomechanically, the way that they're able to lengthen and shorten the muscle fibers within a short period of time. They're moving in different ways. And I suppose when it comes to rugby, especially when I was at Hornets, one of the things they did a lot of was things like grappling. And you see it on YouTube with other clubs.
Yeah.
They do a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling. And it is in these positions that ultimately when you're going to strengthen your calf, strengthen your hip drive when it comes to things like a scrum, or you take the contact, you've got to get down, you've got to do the roll ball, get back up, and you've got to be able, as long as it's relatable, it's something that's really good to do, and having that as part of the structure is absolutely, I think it's vital, isn't it? Really,
definitely, without a doubt, and again, it comes down to the periodisation of where you put that in as well. And I've found it over the years best to put it in off season where they kind of are recovering in it, and it does act as, because it's not weight bearing as such. They're just using majority of the time. They're just using the body weight, so it acts as a recovery process as well. But then also you kind of then automatically preparing them for what you've got in store pre-season. And pre-season in any sport is probably the toughest period for every athlete, to be fair, mentally, physically.
They don't like
so then you can kind of, they're not very keen on it. And obviously, with the situation we've got at the minute, I think they're all nervous about having another pre-season. So it's not, but obviously it'd be obviously a reduced one. But yeah, it's got and a lot of it's trial and error, to be brutally honest. And I mean, I've tried things in past and it just hasn't worked. And you think, why hasn't that worked? I thought it were really nailed on. And again, it's down to education. It's down to trying new things. And like we've hit nail on heads earlier, it's individualized as well. What you've not got to forget, we're working in team sport. They're still individuals at the end of the day, although they're playing a team sport. They are still individual athletes, and they adapt to different circumstances and different stresses. So that's another tough kind of period for an S&C coach to kind of look at and predict that in their kind of philosophy and their models of coaching as well.
It is knowing the player. It's definitely knowing the players, because obviously not every player is good, regardless whether it's amateur league, professional. Not every player is going to be 100% focused on the S&C, because everyone's, we're probably I'm exactly the same when it comes to training, and I'd rather be in there playing a game, getting the ball, throwing the ball about, getting the tackles in, than being in the gym, because ultimately that's what you're there to do. But it's educating these people to understand the reasons behind it. And once they've got the right education and they've got the purpose for it, and this is the importance of obviously having that one-to-one, like you talked about earlier on, and identifying what it is that they want, because you can then have that chat with them and say, right, well, you're doing this is the results of your testing. This is the reason why you're not doing it. I mean, I mean, have you got things like video? Do you do like video analysis and everything as well?
Yeah, so we do video analysis on the games. I mean, unfortunately, we only played one game before all this kicked off, but we do individual analysis on that front, and I do lifting biomechanic analysis as well, and also sprinting analysis as well. So we do the analysis kind of steps in place to help them, because again, no matter how much you tell an athlete or tell somebody that, I don't know, the back's not straight when they're going down into a squat, or the knees are tracking in or something like that, they still give you that deaf look at what the hell is he on about, and is he speaking Spanish?
I'm perfect. I'm perfect.
So it's one of them where you get a video and you draw a couple of nice colourful lines, and they're like, oh yeah, I know what you mean now. So that's a tool that I think every coach should have, really. And it's really, instead of kind of going on and trying to explain in different variations of ways, sometimes people just kinesthetic, they just like to see what you mean. So again, it's kind of coaching people on that front. I mean, I've got athletes that you can tell them straight away, they know exactly what you're on about and they'll do it. Then I've got some athletes that will literally just stare at you like you've grown another head. They haven't got a clue what you're on about. So then you have to do a different method of learning on that front. And like you say, it's education, mate. Education's massive.
So self-awareness is education and understanding yourself, isn't it? Understanding yourself, because if you don't know yourself, then how are you going to progress? Which is really good. I mean, in terms of the, I mean, obviously before we came live, we spoke about the relationship you've got with your physio in terms of the physio will do their bit, then the players will come to you, and then they'll go back to physio. With regards to that, how does that relate to the actual tactical and skill sessions that they have with like the head coaches as well?
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've got a really good head coach, to be fair, and he's really really understands S&C and how important it actually is. Because again, some clubs you go to, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The coaches just, and it's not their fault, because they're coaches. They look at the technical skills. They don't really see the benefit of S&C, and I think it is changing now. But when I first started the industry, that's one of the battles that you had to have. But we've got a really good coach who he knows S&C is a paramount, and that's what kind of first from on it. But we do a lot of everything structured that we do, so it's all timetabled in. And again, sometimes it's down to facilities as well, which you sometimes struggle with. It's not as nice as sometimes football, where you've got your own training ground and you can access it whenever you want. You've got to use other facilities. So sometimes we'll have a field session first, and then we'll have to go into the gym after. Again, it just works the way it does. We get sometimes a Wednesday evening where it's just purely a gym session. We just get complete access. But again, it's because I understand it on a coaching perspective as well. I think they've probably got quite a good S&C coach on that front, because I understand the technical skill aspect as well. So we kind of always on planning. I mean, we'll always ring each other, and we always make sure that as planning fits, and it always fits like a jigsaw. So we make sure that's in there. And then, like you mentioned, the relationship with the sports therapy is brilliant, and it's something I've wanted for years and years and years, because as an S&C coach, you're not just an S&C coach. Sometimes if it's a lower league team, do you know what I mean? Then they haven't got the budget. You sometimes the sports therapists as well. So you've got to predict the injuries. You've then got to rehabilitate the injuries and stuff like that, because a physio might be part-time and just come in as and when. And Bradford do that really well. I mean, we've got a sports therapist there that's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, for me, he should be a doctor. He's absolutely outstanding. But he follows a process. So, and again, it's all interlinked. So the program's all interlinked with the S&C program. The movements are all preparing for big lifts and certain movements that we're going to ask them to do. And then that all kind of interlinks with the skill set and the technical aspects that they're going to be performing on the pitch as well. So like you mentioned, wrestling and stuff like that. So a lot of the middles, they do a lot of contact stuff. Whereas the backs do a lot of sidestepping, a lot of agility, speed, agility, and quickness drills. And that's all then interlinked to, well, what injuries come from that? So knee injuries, shoulder injuries, all that kind of stuff. So we prevent that happening. So we do a lot of prehabilitation, and touch wood, we've had no injuries so far, and we've got a full set of lads. We've literally got not one injury. and that comes from a good S&C program and good sports therapist. So it's imperative to have, but sometimes there's other external factors that just don't allow that, unfortunately.
No, definitely. The communication element is obviously the key. Obviously, one of the key things. Research. Obviously, your research on the game is paramount, because you see at times that an S&C coach will, especially with no disrespect to the younger S&C coaches, but they'll come out of university and they'll be thrown into an elite environment, and they won't really know much about that sport. And we spoke briefly about how I got into rugby league from a number of years in professional football, from academy and everything, and then all of a sudden I'm sort of thrust into a first team environment, and I've got no real experience of rugby league. So that was a big wake up call for me. But you have to know the sorts of contacts, you have to know the types of movement patterns, you've got to know the recovery. And ultimately the sort of the force that's going to be put through the player in each time, because obviously the recovery element is going to be a big process as well. Because obviously once you get a tackle, it's going to take that player a good 5, 6, 7 minutes, maybe longer, to recover before they can get back to full acceleration. Because obviously the amount of hit is probably the best word of putting it. The impact that it has on that player, it's going to take something out of them. And again, this is something that the fans don't realise, and a lot of people don't realise until they do the research. And again, educate. One of the key words I think, Chris, that keeps coming up is education, and it's knowing the sport, knowing the player, the communication element between the different staff members, so that ultimately the duty of care is there. It's great. It's great, isn't it?
It is, mate. It is. It's such a wonderful machine. The kind of whole process as a whole, when it works correctly, and like you said, communication's key. I mean, I've got athletes at such a good age where we can educate them. So we've done, obviously with the current situation that we're in, we've done Zoom calls on muscle contraction presentation and speed presentation. So we're actually educating the lads on why they're doing movements. Why is Chris, S&C coach, asking me to do this movement? So they actually understand the concept and how it fits into their later development as well. So that's another good thing that we've got access is the education and doing presentations on certain aspects, or letting them follow certain programs and then taking down their weights and recovery times, or how long the set took, because that's another thing that I'm quite big on is how long does the sets take? Because again, I think actually dissecting it into time is a better kind of footprint in the ground than actually doing 10 repetitions of an exercise or whatever you kind of at that point. Actually timing the kind of workload that they're on, and then you can get the recovery in there as well on a time perspective as well. So I think that's a massive aspect that, again, I've been a culprit of falling into the rep ranges and kind of going, we're working on power, so we'll work on this certain rep range. Yeah, it's easily done. It's easily done, especially if you stretch for time, or you've just come out of 12 PT sessions in a day and then you're straight into S&C, and then you might have not done your planning for whatever reason and stuff like that, or your schedule might have not allowed you to, or whatever the kind of external factor is. But timing's massive, and I don't think we utilise that as much, and I personally haven't. But I see a lot of S&C programs that don't. They use a lot of rep ranges and stuff like that, and one of my objectives is to use time a lot more and use that in terms of recovery, but also how long the sets are taking the athletes to perform, and in relevance to the sport as well.
That's definitely a crucial element, is the recovery time, because obviously the amount you've got to understand the individual, and I suppose the diet. I mean, what's your sort of intake in terms of diet? I mean, do you tend to do a lot of diet monitoring of the players? Are they? Because I know obviously we spoke at the beginning about they're not allowed to drink, they're not allowed to eat certain foods. How strict are you in terms of monitoring that? And do you have a dietitian in place to help the lads with?
So again, lucky position really, to be fair. I mean, I've worked with clubs in past and you don't get access to such good facilities for one, but also staff members as well. So again, the coach appreciates how important it is, and he's brought a dietitian in that, again, we work closely with. So again, in terms of monitoring, they've got session plans, they've got food diaries, so we look at the food diaries, and we're constantly asking questions around what the food intake is, and are they comfortable with what they've got to kind of buy and stuff like that. We've also had meeting with the parents as well, because again, we're at that age where they are still with the parents. So we have meetings with the parents, and we do these education seminars or presentation workshops with the parents, so they understand as well. So it's all right, the athlete understanding, but then if they're still living with the parents, if the parents won't buy the certain foods in, you kind of at a loss there. So we've actually looked at that aspect as well, and gone down that forefront to educating the parents. Now, in terms of how they're doing it, you're always, unless they're full time and you're actually physically feeding them, you just don't know. But you can kind of see that in obviously body fat percentages, which we do on a regular basis, and you can see whether they are following it or not. Which, touch wood, majority of them are. There's some that you probably say, well, they need to be a bit more stricter with it. But again, it's a balance as well, mate. I think you've got to balance everything out. And I mean, these are still at college. They're on about going to university. Some of them have got jobs. They've got full-time work. So you've got to take that into consideration as well, on how strict you are. And you want for them to still love the game as well. So you don't want it to be too involved where they're kind of going, it's not for me, this. I want to go out with lads and stuff like that. So it's strict, but it's still got that balance in there as well for the athletes.
And that's the crucial thing, isn't it? That balance, for sure.
Massive.
But no, it's brilliant. Well, it's really, really insightful, and really, there's a lot of information I think that the guys that are watching this, and the girls, they can take away from this. And it's really interesting to see, obviously, it from your perspective, running your own business, and also, dealing with up to 90 players on a good day, and sort of, I think there's a lot of take home from this in terms of making sure you've got the right team around you, do your research, that's one thing that I find as well, Chris, I don't know if you're the same, is don't be afraid to look at other sports as well, in terms of, see how they're training and what elements that they take. Because I did something with Taekwondo, and I've never come across martial arts apart from when I was like 5, which is donkeys years ago. But it was interesting to see how what they're doing can also relate. But I mean, in terms of the lockdown, it's a lot of people are thinking, right, what do I do in lockdown? And the fact that you've given the education, I mean, I've seen the presentation on YouTube, which is great. I mean, do you want to talk a bit about your business in terms of where they can find you on social media platforms, and what content that you've got out there that you can share with everybody?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just going back a couple of steps in terms of cross-referencing other sports, I think that's massive, and I think it's a bit of a travesty that doesn't happen a lot, to be honest. I mean, some sports, probably every sport, are a little bit kind of protective of what they've got. And I think if we shared more, I mean, you get a lot of access to American football stuff, and some of their stuff that they do is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I've just read a book called Triphasic Training, and the way they've broke it down in the book is phenomenal. It's just you think, why didn't I think of that? It's so easy to do. And that's from American football and kind of an American forefront. So massive fan of that, massive looking at different sports, working in different sports if you get opportunity, and looking at how they do things slightly differently. And like you say, it's all transferable at the end of the day. So yeah, my personal training business, it's actually called Core 52. The reason I called it Core 52 is because the core is the major point in everything we do. I've worked with athletes where the extremities are absolutely strong as hell, but the core, they've just got like a jelly core, and they can't transfer that strength, unfortunately. So that's one of the reasons why I called it Core.
Have you been looking at my photos again?
yeah. Saw the videos, mate.
That's not going now.
And the 52 is basically 52 weeks a year, so just call it through there. So I'm on Facebook, so I've got a Facebook page. I've also got my own Facebook page that I do a lot, which is Chris Chapman PT. My Facebook page is Core 52. I'm trying to figure out Instagram, which I'm kind of finding. I find anatomy and physiology a lot easier to understand than Instagram, to be good.
Wow. Well, honestly, we'll have a chat about that after this, mate. We'll see.
Mate, it's madness. It's madness. So I am on Instagram. That's GCore52, but it's a bit of a minefield, that, to be honest. And then I've started with YouTube as well. Now, the pure reason I've done YouTube is just to help people out. It's just to load content on there. There's my muscle contractions presentation on there. I've got loads of presentations that I'm going to upload. I've just put another workout on there, so like just free workouts, just to keep people active and keep people mentally sound in this situation. So again, you can all find it using my name, Chris Chapman, or Core 52, really. So they're just little platforms that I use. And again, people just feel free to ask me any questions you like. I'm more than happy to help. And there's no ulterior motive or anything like that. I just want people to be exercising successfully and also answering any questions that my experience allows me to do.
No, Chris, that's absolutely perfect. And the fact that you're making, giving people an insight to the world of elite sport is absolutely fantastic. And being able to share that on social media platforms like YouTube is, it's invaluable, because I know it's certainly from my perspective, it's something that I look at for a coach for the CPD element. It's not there. It's never there, because a lot of people do aspire, especially S&C coaches, they do aspire to work in pro sport. So to be able to get, obviously I watched the presentation last week and it was fantastic. So it's really good to, again, something like we said earlier on about being able to look at that and relate the athletic development into a normal client. It's invaluable. So
definitely. And I think a lot of the information, you have to read textbooks. And I mean, textbooks, you're looking at 300-400 pages long, especially when you're working full whack as well. You don't get opportunity sometimes to do that. And I mean, I look over the years at all the textbooks that I've read and I think, well, if I can dissect that information into understandable formats for people just to pick up, have a look at a 12-minute presentation that I've put together, then it's a lot easier to do. I wish I had that apart from reading the textbooks, but I actually sadly enjoy doing that. But if I can dissect that information and make it easy for people to access, then that's music to my ears, to be brutally honest.
And that speaks volumes about how much you care about your profession, because again, something else we've spoken about previously is you do get the coaches that think that they get qualified and that's it, and it really isn't. You've got to study. But Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really interesting to have you on the show. And I just want to thank you very much for your time. And have you got any advice for any up-and-coming athletes or any S&C coaches to get them through this period?
Yeah, I think for athletes, you've kind of got no choice but to train, keep your goals in mind, see this situation as an opportunity to work on different aspects of your game that you probably weren't that strong at, so coordination-based stuff. If you're inventive enough, you can do majority of stuff bar the loading of the bars, really. So I think you've just got to be creative. In terms of S&C coaches, again, you get qualified with degrees and stuff like that, but that don't mean you're qualified S&C coach. Experience, education, exposing to different elements, linking with different people as well and hearing what they've got to say. There'll be some things that you don't agree with because you've got your own individual philosophy, but then there's loads of take-homes that you can have. But I'd always keep on top of your education, planning, and just try and take opportunities with both hands. Again, there'll be a lot of free work that you have to do. It took me years and years to get paid work. There'll be a lot of free work. That is just the way the industry works. Just stay professional and keep your philosophy close to your heart.
No, definitely. It's definitely who you know these days, isn't it? And not what you know, 100%.
Yeah,
well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Guys, make sure you check out Core 52 on Facebook and Instagram, and obviously Chris Chapman PT on Facebook as well. Chris, stay safe, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
My pleasure also. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.